Be looking at factoring today. So as far as our process here, we kind of talk about like three important steps as we go through our factoring. Okay, remember this is essentially the opposite of what we had been doing previously. We've been given like two parentheses that we multiply together, and then we get our answer that usually looks like something like this, something x plus something, okay? The goal here now is to get from what we have here as an answer and figure out what multiplied together to get me there, okay? So that is kind of what we're dealing with each of these problems. When we go through these problems, there's a couple different ways to kind of go about this. So this video is going to kind of show you one way, and I'll show you one with the left side and then one with the right side. Okay. So on the left side, I'm going to go through. We list our factors of our C value. Okay, and this is only if there's no number out front. Okay, so there's no number out here with my x squared. When I talk through my A, my B, and my C values, what I'm talking about is our normal form here is ax squared plus bx plus c. So our c is that last term over here. That's the 8. The A value, when I say, well, is there an A value? If there's not, then we don't have to worry about any extra steps. Okay. So for right now, today we're going to be dealing with when our A value is 1, or essentially we don't see anything with that x squared. Okay. So if there's no A value out front, I'm going to list my factors of my C value. So I'll write out my 8. Usually we do this kind of off to the side. I'm actually going to do this in a different color here, so it's a little different. So I've got my 8 over here on the side. I'm going to list all the factors of 8. So I can say, well, 1 times 8 and 2 times 4. Those are the factors of numbers that multiply to get me 8. Okay. The reason why we do this, okay, so step 1 is list my factors. Step 2 then is to figure out, I want a factor that multiplies to get me this 8, so we already have that list here. And then I got to figure out which set would add together to get me this positive 6. So if I'm looking at these, 1 and 8, if I add those together, it gets me 9. 2 and 4, if I add together, does equal 6. So this is the pair that I want to use. Okay, so first step, list our factors. Second step, we're looking to pick out our pair that actually adds to get my middle term. Okay, so our third step is to put it into our factored form. Basically what we were talking about up here, starting from the beginning, kind of going over to the left. Okay, so here what's going to happen is my first term was x squared. I'm going to bring that down as just x on both sides. And the reason for that is when we multiply, x times x gets me that x squared. So that first term is just staying x. Okay. Inside here, my two factors were a positive 2 and a positive 4 that got me to 6. So I would say positive 2 and positive 4. This right here would be what we consider our factored answer. Okay. In the future, we'll deal with ones where we actually say we're solving for this quadratic or this polynomial, where we have to set it equal to 0 and do a little bit more after that. But right now, when we're asked to factor, this is what our answers are going to look like. Okay. We'll do the second one over here. I said I was going to try to do a second, show you a different method. For right now, we're just going to stick with this, and then I'll kind of talk to you about that other method maybe in the future. Okay. So here in this example, again, I look. There is no A value, so there's no number in front of my R squared. So then I'm going to list my factors of our C value, our 32. Okay, so I list my factors of 32. We're going to do this one in green. So we've got 32. I'm going to list its factors. Okay, so I can go 1 and 32, 2 and 16, 4 and 8, 5 doesn't factor, 6 doesn't factor, 7 doesn't factor, and 8 does, which we already have an 8 over here, so we know we're done. Okay. We will be giving you a multiplication chart so that you're able to kind of look through those factors. So if we're having any difficulty finding these factors of our numbers, you're able to kind of look through and kind of find these pairs. Okay. Again, our goal here is to get to our middle term. Okay, so if I notice the middle term here is a negative 12, and right now we're like, well, Mr. Schultz, if I add 1 and 32, 2 and 16, 4 and 8, they're going to get me positive answers. Well, we say our factors over here are what multiplies to get me 32. A positive times a positive gets me a positive. A positive times a negative gets me a negative, so that won't work. So I can't have one positive and one negative. But we do know a negative times a negative makes this positive. So when I multiply these two together, if I made both of these numbers negative, they could multiply together to get me a positive 32. And then when they add, they could possibly get me that negative 12 I'm looking for. So here I could say, well, if I make both of these negative then, negative 1 times negative 32 gets me 32. Does that add together to get me negative 12? No, so this one doesn't quite work for us. Negative 2 and negative 16, again, multiplies to get me positive 32. If I added those together, it gets me negative 18, not what I'm looking for. So hopefully it's this last one. Negative 4 times negative 8 gets me positive 32. When I add this together, negative 4 plus negative 8, it does get me the negative 12. So I know this is the pair that I want. Again, I'm going to put my two parentheses. My original, my kind of first variable out here, we're splitting. So r times r gets me r squared. So that's why that's my first term there. So here, I'm looking back at my factors, looking at their signs. The signs of my values, or my factors that I have over here that add to get my middle term, is what I'm looking at. So it was a negative 4, so I'm putting minus 4. A negative 8, so I put minus 8. Okay. Again, this would be my factored form. That would be my answer for what we're dealing with today. Okay. Again, hopefully this kind of helps you guys out. We'll be doing a lot more with factoring. This is kind of that first steps into factoring, but I just want to kind of get you some information or a video for you to be able to watch. Okay. Always reach out if you have questions. Looking forward to seeing you guys in a bit.